They are intense, passionate about something in particular, and they think you should be equally passionate, and they're disappointed, even scandalized, when you're not. You know them, you've seen them, and you've certainly heard from them. I call them the activists. They play an important role in the life of faith, even if we sometimes see them as gadflies. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, May 11th, 2023. Activists in the church are kind of like single-issue voters in the secular world. They've latched on to something and go after it with such an intensity that they're like a dog with a new bone. And it can be almost anything: social justice, hunger, the environment, evangelism, and a whole raft of other things. And for the most part, their passions are grounded in some element of the biblical witness that they find compelling. As with some of the other faces of faith, though, the activists do have some drawbacks. In the first place, they can sometimes have the opposite effect from what they intend. Instead of attracting people to their cause, their single-minded intensity can turn people away and make them not simply indifferent, but actually hostile to their cause. In some cases, their passion not only becomes a turnoff for those in their own churches and communities, but they come to be seen as the very face of Christianity itself, repelling some who might otherwise be drawn to the faith. But that rarely deters them. They will continue pursuing their passion, often building a coalition of like-minded people to join forces. A second drawback is that, taken to an extreme, activists can distort the faith. In theological terms, we call this heresy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling all activists in the church heretics. But as with most heresies throughout the long history of the church, the underlying idea is not wrong, but when it becomes the central focus of the faith, it distorts the faith. But with these caveats aside, the activists among us play an important role in the life of the faith. In the first place, they remind us that there are certain things about the faith that matter deeply. For example, our social justice activists remind us that there is a very strong thread running throughout the Bible, including parts of the Torah and especially in the prophets, which insists that an indispensable element of the faith involves our treatment of the poorest and most marginalized in our midst. The social justice activists do us an enormous favor by raising up this element of the faith and working on our behalf to achieve a fairer, more just world. This points to a second important thing the activists do for us. Not everyone in the church has to be passionate about all the same things, and not everyone in the church has to take on everything that is important in the faith. I'm reminded of a portion of 1 Corinthians where Paul says, God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts. The activists take on some of these important roles in the church which not everyone cares about or is called upon to take on. Not everyone in the church is passionate about evangelism, for example, but those who are passionate about evangelism perform an extremely important task, bearing witness to those who stand outside the church and inviting them to step inside and see what the faith is all about. It's not that the activists let the rest of us off the hook, but rather that they take on roles not everyone is suited for, which also frees up the rest of the church to do other things like leading worship, teaching Sunday school, conducting Bible studies, visiting the sick, and 1,000 other relatively ordinary jobs that make the church run. So, yes, the The activists among us do important work, and yes, they can be annoying at times. But as Paul reminds us, where would we be without them? We are more the church when they pursue their passions. When we return tomorrow, the caregivers. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.